Please welcome to the stage Bankfoot JAC.
Good morning and a warm welcome. Judges, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Bankfoot JAC. Today's team are a group of intelligent and strong-willed girls who are sure to take you on a flying journey this morning. Today, my panel will discuss the topic, Budget Airlines are responsible for climate change. Without further ado, I will introduce my team. To my right, proposing today's topic, is Megan Oswaldson.
Good morning.
Megan has a degree in agricultural bioscience. She has become an agronomist through this and also enjoys spending time doing dog agility with her dog. To my left, opposing our topic, is Caitlin Barry.
Good morning.
Caitlin has a HNC in agriculture and works on a family farm as well as another farm. She also loves spending her time with her sheep. To my far left is our arbiter, Louise Carr.
Good morning.
I will introduce Louise more fully later on. Megan, now is your opportunity to take to the floor this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having us here today. I am here to put to you that budget airlines are responsible for climate change. I shall talk you through some key areas to my view, including how jet fuel is a finite resource, budget prices are incentivising excess travel, and over-tourism is impacting our environment on a local scale as well. Now, let me set the scene. Warm, sunny days, drink in hand. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? But have you ever thought about how your EasyJet budget flight is actually making it more easy for you to have an impact on our climate? Now, jet fuel is a fossil fuel. Think of it as dinosaur juice. It was produced millions of years ago through the decomposition of animals and plant matter. It's a finite resource that we are likely to see depleted within our lifetime, if not completely run out. It's not renewable, therefore it is not sustainable. Budget airlines don't help with this. Cheap airfare, think under £40 to travel to another country. It's really inciting. And often that sees people travelling more, even 3 to 4 times a year, where perhaps historically it was more of a treat that you got to go once a year, if that for some. And what that's doing is creating excessive travel, further depleting that finite resource and further adding to that climate impact and overall climate change. But hey, what does that matter? You're in Costa del Sol, you say. It really doesn't matter. Social media is telling me that I want to be in this hottest place, I want to be in this nicest beach, this cutest town. But what this is leading to is issues such as over-tourism, which, whilst not necessarily having a climate change impact on a wider scale, think of a more of a smaller scale. There have been issues within the news where local environments, such as beaches and coral reefs, have been impacted from the suntan lotion coming off of people's bodies when they go for a swim. It's lack of research, lack of information that you simply don't get from your budget one-click holiday. I think all of these are reasons which, when combined, do indicate that budget airlines are contributing to climate change.
Thank you, Megan. You have certainly got us off to a jetting start. Nonetheless, I suspect you will face some robust opposition from our second speaker. Caitlin, I can see that you are keen to take to the floor this morning on some of the points raised by your fellow club member. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As a holidaymaker myself, today I'm here to tell you why I think budget airlines are not responsible for climate change. Think about how many petrol and diesel cars are still on the road. An airplane can carry many people compared to your average car, and many houses are still burning coal and wood into the climate. As the population increases, the amount of petrol and diesel cars are increasing on the roads, whereas you don't hear of an extra plane being put out into the sky. Going off that point, more planes don't need to be introduced as much as cars, as they are a method of public transport, and they're able to carry more than your average 5-door car. As more and more new houses are getting built, think about all the older houses that are still getting to burn coal into the climate. Not only that, but the amount of farmers that still think it's okay to burn plastic, causing that black reek into the sky that is so obvious. So that's why I think budget airlines are not responsible for climate change.
Thank you very much, Caitlin, for your thought-provoking and relevant perspective. Knowing Megan well and the fact she always has lots to say, I will now ask Megan to take to the floor and challenge Caitlin's viewpoint.
You raised some strong arguments there, Caitlin. However, I would like people to reflect upon the fact about how our decisions we made when we go on that budget flight and sail halfway across the world, that it's ultimately our future that we're impacting. We're burning more of these fossil fuels. And certainly last time I checked, I wasn't seeing any electric or solar powered planes. I think that'd be a bit of a recipe for a disaster. But what we do have is we do have renewable powered public transport within Scotland and also within the wider UK. You know, we are fortunate enough to live within a beautiful country, so why not using our local public transport systems? Can we not travel to find some, you know, places that we've perhaps never seen before that are really right on our doorstep at the end of the day? It's smaller impacts, it's supporting local economies, local businesses. So I think ultimately when it has a less impact on climate change, it's all for the better. So my view on this still stays unchanged.
Thank you again, Megan. I can tell nothing about this morning is going to be quiet. I'm sure these two have much more to say, so with that, we will now have a short discussion. I will ask both panellists to please stay seated throughout. Caitlin, do you not think that the fuel emissions from these planes and everything cause so much harm to not just the air, that it's then going to cause harm to your health and inform it's not going to be so good for the world? Can you expand on why you think it is going to be an impact?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, climate change is a hot topic all the time. Global warming, it's all the whole world. It's changing all the time. The fuels and stuff out the plane, it can harm your health, but there are many, many other things that can cause harm to your health, such as your smoking. There's so many other diseases that you can catch other than just the fuels that come off your plane to take you on your lovely holiday. Megan, just going back to one of your points there, travelling more locally to your local destinations, your on your doorstep holidays. You know, if you think about it, taking your cars, you're going to have, if you're a big family, you're going to have to take more than one car. So you're going to have that fuel to get you to that destination. Whereas if you can just take a couple cars to the airport, you can jump on the plane and you're off, and that's that. Yes, they are introducing your electric cars. However, are they really reliable at the moment? Insurance is sky high for the electric cars because they're just not quite reliable enough yet.
Yeah, I think in terms of points there, you know, talk about electric cars again, it's another form of renewable transport, and I also would draw upon the fact that I'm hoping not everybody's driving themselves to the airport, perhaps taking more public transport, thinking about the wider impacts of the climate there as well. But I think we're also perhaps missing the wider impacts that often these airlines, budget airlines, have. You know, you think about not only the jet fuel consumption, but perhaps the journey whilst you're on the plane as well. You might even be treated to a snack if they don't charge you for it. But again, it's things like that. It's so much plastic, so much single-use items that are ultimately going into the bin. It's this whole theme of overconsumption. It's far too easy just to be able to click and jet off to your next destination, whereas I think really consumers should be made much more aware of the wider impacts of this. And there's so many airline companies, particularly budget airline companies, that outsource their carbon impact. They go, gosh, well, I'm going to burn all this carbon emissions and put it into the atmosphere. Or, I don't know, I'll just go buy myself a nice plot of trees somewhere in the middle of nowhere, perhaps on some prime arable land, in fact, and have an impact there. So I still think that these budget airlines are just having such a massive impact on the climate.
I think when you're sitting in the airport to go and jet off to your holiday, you're not quite thinking about the climate. You're thinking about heading off to your next destination. However, yes, you may be supplied with a wee snack and a wee drink on your flight to your next destination. However, you would like to hope and think that your airline company would know how to recycle better and know that that's going to help the environment if the plane maybe isn't.
Still doesn't change the fact that you're going to be burning fossil fuels, you're going to be travelling away to a destination that have you researched how to responsibly visit as a tourism. You know, thinking about over-tourism at the end of the day, it should be a special opportunity that you research, you get to know, you get the true worth out of it. At the end of the day, think of things like fast fashion. We put much less value into something when it becomes so much more easily and readily available that ultimately, you know, we can go travelling multiple times a year. I think, you know, it still stands that there's just a massive impact that perhaps the consumer's not even being informed about. So we can't even make these informed decisions with regards to whether the budget airline is the best thing for our environment.
Speakers, thank you very much for your opposing views, but I will have to stop you both there. The arguments have been strong on both sides, but our arbiter Louise has no room to hide. And it is now your time to provide. It is my pleasure to introduce Louise. Louise is a registered veterinary nurse running the general practice, and she also is heavily involved in young farmers on many levels, which means she keeps herself very busy. With that, in her spare time, she enjoys going out for walks and also enjoys swimming. Louise, it is now in your capable hands to decide who's convinced you this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, both of our speakers have worked hard to convince you of their views on the subject that budget airlines are responsible for climate change. And in doing so, an interesting debate certainly took off. However, have they convinced you to go out and book your next budget trip to the sunshine? Or perhaps you're going to keep it more local this year? Our proposer Megan started us off this morning with her opening argument that the use of jet fuel in these budget airlines it's too high, it's a fossil fuel, it's not a renewable source, and at this rate we are likely to run out. It's not a sustainable use of fuel. Next, she discussed that these budget airlines are making travel so much more accessible, causing a larger uptake in people going travelling, and as a result this is using more of this limited resource that we have. Finally, Megan mentioned that the over-tourism that comes with these budget airlines is actually having an environmental impact more locally as well, due to the over-tourism of everyone now jetting off to these foreign places. It was then over to our opposer Caitlin, who was keen to get her view across by stating that yes, these planes are using these fossil fuels, but the number of cars on the roads are also using a high volume of these important resources. She then went on to say that planes actually carry a lot more people and could be considered as public transport, which is obviously, we're always told public transport is better than using your car. Lastly, Caitlin argued that houses and farmers were using just as much fossil fuel, so is it really that much different to going on a budget airline? In her reply, Megan was keen to express that the renewable powered public transport is available, and we should be encouraging the use of this, staying more locally and instead of going abroad. Our panellists then went into their head-to-head debate, and it was clear to see that nobody was backing down. Our opposer Caitlin started us off by saying that local travelling for holiday might not mean you have to use a plane, but you're still taking a car. For a large family, maybe 2 cars or more. So you're still using that fuel consumption, so it's not really benefiting the climate. Megan was keen to counter this, stating that there are other factors involved in these budget airlines and their impact on the climate, such as plastics and materials. Caitlin then argued that, planes these days, they are encouraging recycling to help impact this. However, Megan was quick to reiterate that the use of fossil fuels in planes, it's just too high. Ladies and gentlemen, if, like me, you love getting out there travelling, but you also care about the climate, this was certainly an interesting debate. And both our speakers have provided very strong arguments in support of their views. However, it is clear to see that our proposer Megan had the most convincing argument in her view that budget airlines are responsible for climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise, for your considered opinion. This has been an interesting and heated discussion this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, do you agree? It's my sincere thanks to my panel, the judges, and of course, you, the audience. Good morning.